Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2. I'll probably have 4 parts today for Monday, July 29th, 2013. Alright, I'm ready to go here. I'm going to continue here with the Mideast. It says here, Libya Prime Minister to reshuffle cabinet amid political crisis. So, like I mentioned before, it's pretty much, we have a very good, every once in a while you get a good powder keg situation. It's a good way to put it, where things are just ready to, ready to pop, basically. So, Libyan Prime Minister has announced plans to reshuffle his government in the coming days amid the country's political crisis. Says since the removal of this Barghouti in late June, the North African country has not had a defense minister. Also, it says the Libyan premier also said the Internal Security Agency is reactivated in a move to contain the violence which has plagued the country. He added that he understated that the Libyans' opposition to the agency, which had been used by the former regime to suppress the people, saying, but without an efficient intelligence body, we cannot stop the attacks. Then we have more than 1,000 escape in Libyan prison break, says security. 1,000 inmates, mostly common law offenders, escaped during a prison riot and attack on Saturday in Benghazi. Mali voter turnout around 50%, says the European Union. The top observer says around 50% of those eligible to vote have participated in Mali's presidential election under heavy security on Sunday. Then another big news besides Saudi Arabia was Tunisia. Tunisia on brink of internal conflict after assassinations. It's the cradle of the Arab Spring and widely seen as a country that made the most successful transition from dictatorship to democracy, and now teetering on the brink of internal conflict as the Arab world continues to be engulfed by upheaval and war. It says here there was an assassination Thursday of a secular opposition leader, Mr. Brahmi. Mass opposition rallies likely in Tunisia, says Russia's African envoy. The current developments in Tunisia indicate that conditions are ripe for opposition rallies in that country, with the consequences hard to predict, said the Kremlin's African envoy. Society in the region is becoming increasingly split over the secular religious standoff, he said. The downfall of the Islamist rule in Egypt may repeat itself with slight differences in Tunisia and a domino effect triggered off at the start of the Arab Spring in North Africa. So, it says they're ripening within the moderate Islamist jihadist opposition triangle. Then we have Tunisian opposition might set up a rival salvation government. Tunisia's secular opposition said on Sunday it might set up an alternative salvation government, that's what they call it, to challenge the Islamist-led ruling coalition and show its anger at the assassination of the two leftist politicians in 6 months. So, you're talking about the Mali thing, they were all saying how great it was that 50% showed up and this is democracy. It's just, and then they say, oh, they're sliding into anarchy. Well, it's not anarchy, it's not real democracy. And then, you're talking about Islamist-led government. They give them all these different things, and it's not actually where the people have any say. So it's going to be Islamist-led, or it's going to be secular-led. But it's not coming from the people, and that's the main thing to know. They're being oppressed. So, Tunisia Army declares protest area closed military zone. The Tunisian Army has declared an area where pro- and anti-government protests were held as closed military zones that used barbed wire to close the main square in the capital of Tunis. After a bunch of demonstrations and protests by both sides, gunmen shoot dead 7 Tunisian soldiers near Algerian border. Unknown gunmen have shot to death 7 Tunisian soldiers near the Algerian border. So it's the radio station, I guess, in there. Will Egypt become the next Algeria if Egypt carries out the same sort of undemocratic and misguided actions seen in Algeria during the 90s? It will greatly reduce the revolution's prospect for success. Success for who? Again, for the people? For the Zionist-occupied governments? For the globalists? For the people. Well, like I said, the people are usually going to lose. Barack and Michelle Obama congratulate royals on the birth of baby. So, that's pretty cool, right? Congratulated them on the royal baby. Well, you have this too. Killing by drones. Total killed 3,093. This is back then, so it's probably more. Children killed 178 total. 1,268. Strikes under Bush, 52. Strikes under Obama, 267. So this is a suspected terrorist, and this is one of them. Good example. U.S. drone strikes kill 8 in southern Yemen. So it just goes to show you, you know what I mean? It's just, ooh, congratulate the royal baby, you know what I mean? while he's killing babies. So it's like every president that preceded him. So U.S. drone strikes kill 8 in southern Yemen. 6 suspects killed in first strike. 2 rescuers killed in second. So that's a double tap strike. They strike, blow up a house or a farmhouse or whatever, kill a bunch of people. And then when they go out to help scrape up the dead bodies or the injured people, they go in there, and the CIA and the Americans, they go in there and strike again and kill the rescuers. That's their double tap strategy. 6 that were murdered were all dubbed suspects. So I guess they were suspects too, like maybe, you know, like this suspect. U.S. drone strike kills 5 in northwestern Pakistan. Says at least 5 people have been killed in an attack by a U.S. assassination drone in northwestern Pakistan. The casualties come after 2 missiles hit a convoy of people in the Shawal area of northwest Waziristan Sunday evening. This is the latest attack as the Prime Minister Sharif has recently blasted U.S. drone strikes in his country, describing this as a violation of international law. Well, they get paid to allow these drone strikes, so it's in the leadership's hands, but at the same time, if the U.S. doesn't want Pakistan to go rogue, which is a nuclear power, this isn't a good way to bring them into their yoke or into their trust by bombing their people, right? So that's the thing. They're not really trusted anymore. They're not part of the nuclear club. I don't think they really want them to have nuclear weapons anymore. But list of children killed by drone strikes in Pakistan and Yemen compiled from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism reports. So this is all from Pakistan right there, and this is all from Yemen as well. So you can go in there and check them out. 65 killed in U.S. overnight airstrikes in Afghanistan. At least 65 people have been killed in overnight airstrikes carried out by U.S. forces in Afghanistan's eastern province of Paktia. So they come after a series of airstrikes happened in the area of this province on Sunday night. The U.S. military has confirmed separate air raids in 3 villages, saying those killed were all militants. But local sources say civilians have been the main victims of the attacks. So I've covered this before. Syria crisis feeds Iraqi violence, says Al-Qaeda revival, or that's what they're saying. And this is from last year of August. Insurgents creeping back to some old strongholds. Syrian crisis injects new life into Al-Qaeda affiliate. You have this article, Iraq violence, wave of deadly car bombs target Shias. So I've mentioned so many times, you get about 50 killed, 200 injured in Iraq. Nobody really, I mean, yeah, they cover it, but it's just like, oh, just another day in Iraq. It's like, no, this is a result of what we did. Like in Libya, it's not going to change, you know. A wave of car bombs has killed at least 51 people in mostly Shia areas of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. More than 200 people were wounded in the attacks. More than 2,500 Iraqis have died in attacks since April. The UN says 2,500, with violence at its highest since 2008. Israeli Navy installing system to counter this Russian anti-ship missile. Israel's Navy has begun installing a new defense system on its missile boats that would protect them from the feared Russian anti-ship missile. It's a Brock 8 medium-range missile designed to intercept airborne threats, including enemy aircraft, anti-ship missiles, and cruise missiles. Interesting, you have that individual I was talking about, Jaffa, whatever, from basically the Lebanese analyst, media analyst that was assassinated after talking about these weapons that Syria had. And he kept saying that that this airstrike never took place, but like what Israel and the Zionists like to do is they like to claim things that didn't actually take place, or you know, that they didn't do. He said that this didn't happen. A Russian shipment of these missiles was allegedly destroyed by in Syria by Israel. Sorry, destroyed in Israel by Israel. So he said it never took place. And you also have conflicting reports saying, you know, where you have Russia saying, well, we never actually delivered the missiles to Syria. Israeli Navy grapples with defending Mediterranean gas fields. Amid signs of Israel's effort to patch up relations with one-time ally Turkey is in difficulties, the prospect of exporting gas from offshore fields to Europe via a pipeline under the Eastern Med to Turkey would seem dimming. That suggests more interest in liquefied gas system aimed at lucrative exports to Asia via the Red Sea. Either way, Israel's Navy is trying to figure out how best to protect the Jewish state's expanding gas industry, and if current plans work out, oil production as well. Talking about kind of global or supranational armies, the EU planning to own and operate spy drones and an air force. The European Union is planning to own and operate spy drones, surveillance satellites, and aircraft as part of a new intelligence and security agency under the control of Baroness Ashton. So the controversial proposals are a major move towards creating an independent EU military body with its own equipment and operations, and will be strongly opposed by Britain. So, what this has to do with is basically, this is Rothschild's own private army. I mean, this is what it is. The European Union's their creation, Jewish banking dynasties, and you know, you have to take away all the independent sovereign states' sovereignty, right? Their nation state status before you can go ahead and create a European army. EU plans independent intelligence agency as response to the United States. This is all from recent, yesterday. European Union is planning to assemble an independent intelligence body of its own in an urgent response to the recent revelation that the U.S. has been, it's all because the U.S. has been spying on the EU officials as well as European citizens. What a joke, It's like the same people that own the EU own the United States. I don't think that they really give a shit about the U.S. spying on Berlin. You know how much the German government probably spies on its own people? Probably just about as much as the British government spies on its own people. Or like any other country. Sweden proposes a Nordic battalion force plan. So a potential joint Nordic battalion force will be on the table when defense ministers and commanders from Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark meet to discuss Swedish proposal this fall. So they better be careful. It's kind of a racist move that they're doing there. One could even call it anti-Semitic. But unfortunately for the Scandinavians, I think that that the Zionists they're pretty entrenched over there in their society and their economy as well. So again, another private army. Unisex uniforms debut as Army opens units to women. So a new combat uniform with special consideration to the female body is now available at Fort Gordon almost a month after the Army announced plans to open units and military jobs to women by 2016. Have narrower shoulders, slightly tapered waist, and a more spacious seat. Billionaire politician wants military stripped of voting rights. This, of course, is in Russia, right? Where you had Jewish Bolsheviks basically had their own private government, which was known as the USSR. The head of the liberal pro-market party civil platform, Prokhorov, said in a speech that all military servicemen should be deprived of voting rights in the presidential election. So that just goes to show you their aims, Again, I'm not really sure how much voting really counts because it's not real democracy, so... But for whatever it's worth, I guess if you're going to be fighting, you should at least have a say who's going to be leading. But anyways, it's... Air Force facing fighter pilot shortage offers retention bonuses of up to $225,000. They estimate that without a serious recruiting effort, it will be short 700 fighter pilots 8 years from now, so it's offering retention bonuses of up to almost $250,000 to stay in the service for an additional 9 years. The deadline to respond to this unusual help wanted ad is September 30th. Reasons for the shortage? Fighter pilot fatigue after 12 years of war, sequestration, which has 1/3 of the Air Force fighter squadrons grounded, plus commercial airlines offer higher salaries on average. Kind of forgot to include this in the other news that I was talking about with the supranational armies in the UN or the EU. The UN mulls use of private security groups. The United Nations is assessing private military and security companies and their commitment to international norms. So, the discussion of the use of mercenaries and private security companies is scheduled next week at the UN headquarters. Again, this is the Zionist own little private government, world government. So, and essentially that's what they want. We're talking about soldiers voting and Air Force pilots. They're not machines. I believe that we have souls. Some people don't. But either way, you have to live with the morality of the results of your actions. So, you can only bomb people and realize that it's not really just or anything. You're not doing anything for human rights or helping people. You're going to stop doing it. So that's why they want to move to completely automate autonomous robots, autonomous drones, so that you don't question anything. You don't question anything. You just carry out the orders. And that's why they like to have their own private security as well. I mean, essentially, we're looking at one corporation running the world with one probably private mercenary force for the elites. U.S. approves drones for civilian use. You shouldn't be surprised by that. And the Pentagon to deploy huge spy blimps over Washington, D.C. for spying on Americans, but they probably already have them up there around the country. Thank you.